Yo, 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 yo. What the freaking heck is up? Space Cat here. And we're back with another speed run. Today we're gonna be speedrunning mixing, just overall track mixing. How we're gonna get that -6 dB of headroom before we go into our master. That's what I'm trying to freaking figure out. Let me hold on. Ah! Ah. Who the heck is that guy?
He's got a nice mustache.
Who the freaking heck is this guy? Alright, I'm hopping into my server. Studying scrolls. Just share my entire screen with you. So I think we should we you think we should start top up? You think we should start with learning bass to high frequency, or you think we should start high frequency to low? What do you think?
Well, I think start from the bottom. Now we're here.
Yeah. And now we're here. We're currently here.
I feel like everybody has to start from the bottom.
That's true. Okay, so let's start with bass and then go up from there. God, this rain is cool. Let me show you. Wow, what beauty and awe. Is it aura for me to be streaming on my porch? Is that aura? What are your thoughts? I need to get my phone so I can look at chat. Okay. Let me tell you, what are my goals for today? My freaking goals. Understanding how to get -6 dB of headroom. What should I track at versus record at volume? Should, and then maybe, I mean, it's probably just the HDMI cord. You probably just need to jingle and jangle it around, or maybe go find. There's a couple other ones in there. I think there's one on the ground over here too that you can. There's a couple different HDMI cords you can try out. Okay. Another goal of mine. What are the best plugins for the job? No clip or clip? Face? Question mark. Mono? Question mark. Okay. That's good. Those are some good goals. So, let me sneak in here. Is that a cat right there? Anyways. Let's now look up how to mix.
What if there was a song about Codewise with Musician on a Mission, and in this video you're going to learn my step-by-step simple mixing workflow so you can move through the mixing process quickly and efficiently. And make sure to stick around to the end of the video because, as usual, I've got a free bonus.
It's never a good sign when you are playing an audio video and the video's audio sounds bad and it is quiet. Like, you think that they'd apply the logic that they're teaching to their own audio.
Bonus for you. So here's the 6-step simple mixing method. Session prep, initial balance, mix bus, process top down, listen throughs, and evaluate translation. Let's break these steps down one by one. Step number 1 is session prep. Before you start moving faders and adding plugins, you want to prepare your session. This means things like putting your tracks in an order that makes sense to you, grouping similar tracks together, color coding, labeling sections of the song, gain staging, selecting your reference tracks, and setting your buffer size to its highest setting to avoid CPU overload.
Interesting. Organizing tracks, grouping similar tracks together, color coding. Gain staging, selecting reference tracks, setting buffer size to its highest limit. So I feel like the only things that are like holy shit. Ba-da-da-da-da-dee-dee. Most important metrics in mixing: loudness, peaks, dynamic, spectral balance, and stereo phase integrity. LUFS is the global standard perceived loudness. Streaming platforms normalize playback using LUFS. True peak measures inter-sample peaks that can clip after encoding. Yep, we all know this. We all know these things. We learned these last time. Loudness range measures the difference between quiet and loud sections. Dynamic, cinematic, dense, compressed, modern, pop. Choose an LRA appropriate for your genre. Okay, so if you want something to be more dynamic, Mm. Um, okay. -6 to -3 dBFS. So headroom -6 dBFS to ooh, everything's raining on me. Oh shit. Okay, hold on. Ah. Okay. Not plus. So integrated loss is not important. Birds of feather, we should stick together and putting up the minutes. This would be advice in the mastering chain. So true peak and integrated loss are not important pre-master. Okay. Internal balance metrics, RMS, and crest factor. Use RMS to check burst versus chorus energy, low end consistency, whether compression is flattening the mix. Crest factor equals peak RMS. This tells you how punchy your mix is. Okay, so crest factor. Okay, so crest factor is how you maintain punch. Spectral balance, the most important tonal metric. This determines whether your mix translates across. Smooth, genre appropriate spectral curves, no harsh. 2 to 5k spikes, no mud buildup. 200, 400 hertz, controlled low end. Ba-da-doo, ba-da-ba-da, ba-da-ba-dee, ba-da-ba-doo, ba-da-ba-ah, ba-da-ba-chee. Okay, so here's some important standards. Makes sense for the Fletcher-Munson curve, and where people have hearing damage. This can be harsh right here. No mud buildup at 200 to 400 hertz. Okay, controlled low and below 120 hertz. Eight to 12 kilohertz. Makes sense. Controls the sub, controls all that mud. Transients at 250. All the transients around here for the Fletcher-Munson curve or whatever. Airband present but not brittle. 8 to 12. Okay. Okay, phase and mono compatibility. Pre-master, this is critical. What to meet? No phase cancellation when summed to mono. Okay, that makes sense. Kick and bass phase aligned. Makes sense. So they don't cancel out. Stereo widening, not causing comb filtering. Okay. What the fuck's comb filtering? What the fuck's comb filtering? Multi-mic sources, phase coherent. That's so true. Alright. Dynamic metrics, LRA and microdynamics. Check in mono for phase. Dynamics metrics, LRA and microdynamics. Unlike mastering, where LRA is often reduced, mixing is where dynamics are shaped. Alright, sec.
CashNet USA knows the struggle.
Okay, so we have the car payment, the rent, utilities, and the repair bill. What should we do?
Get money fast at cashnetusa.com. Apply in minutes, get an instant decision, and if approved, you could have the money in your account as soon as the same business day. Go to cashnetusa.com to apply for the money you need now. The exact timing as to when your loan funds will be available will be determined by your banking institution.
Yo. I wonder how long that's been off. How long has it been off? Hold on, have I been talking to myself and like not hearing myself the whole time? No way. No way. I've been silent this whole fucking time. No way. Yeah. Okay. Who the fuck is this guy? 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 This bullshit. Shit, it's 4. We gotta get going. 30 minutes in, I barely learned shit. This is hardly a speedrun. Alright. I just swallow a bug. There's sometimes bugs fly into my drink. I swallow them and accidentally. Ugh. Yuck. I don't think I swallowed a bug. Chill out. Fuck you. Let me turn this up so we can get more wizard. What the fuck is going on? Dude, it smells so weird outside. Like, it smells like pine. Like wet pine. Okay. Yes.
Welcome to Sage Audio. Today let's look at how to mix a song in 10 steps. But first, if you have a mix that you need mastered, send it to us to receive a free mastered sample of it with the link in the description.
Let's go, Sage Audio.
For this video, I can't go into really specific details since it would take too much time to cover, but check out some of our other videos for how to mix specific instruments, using creative techniques to solve mix problems, and so on. Also, you don't have to mix the same way I do, but this is just a helpful general flow for mixing that I've found works well more times than not. Now before I begin to mix a song, I like to organize everything within my session. For example, I'll color code the tracks and arrange them according to what type of instrument they are. Then, I'll change the icons to corresponding instruments and change their outputs to buses. So, all of my instruments will go to an instrument bus, all of the drums will go to a drum bus, and so on, which I've also color-coded to match the instruments being sent to them. As far as mixing goes, I'll get some general levels, but these will probably change as the mix develops. Let's take a listen to the unprocessed signal so that we can hear what we'll be working on. Attenuate unwanted frequency.
People are always playing some bullshit when it comes to these fucking mixing tutorials. Can somebody just please play some fucking fire ass like hyperpop or something like that? Why does it always have to be like the most boring sound you've ever heard in your life?
Frequencies with EQ. The first insert that I'll use is almost always an EQ, with which I'll cut frequencies that I don't want and dip some ones that I want less of. You'll notice that I'll use high pass filters, and I'll typically dip a little of the low mids to reduce their masking effect on higher, more clarifying frequencies. Also, if a signal doesn't need to be equalized, I'll just leave it alone, since there's no need to waste any CPU that could be used later on. Let's take a listen to how the EQ subtly clarifies the signal. If you're enjoying the video, hit the like button and subscribe if you haven't already. It's free and it helps us bring you more videos. Increase details with compression. Next, I'll be specific with which compressors I use on each signal, since they each sound different. For example, on the vocal, I'll use compression settings that capture all of the signal due to the soft knee and look ahead, and then bring it forward with some automatic makeup gain. Or, on the kick drum, I'll use an 1176 emulation with short attack and release to distort transients and then bring quieter details up by increasing the output. You don't need to stick to just downward compression either. On the snare and tambourine, I used an upward compressor to amplify the quieter, brighter aspects. Or you might want to avoid compressing a signal altogether if its dynamics are controlled already. Now what you choose depends on the signal that you're mixing, but I find this is a good point in the mix to control dynamics and to begin shaping the timbre of individual signals. Let's take a listen. Add character with saturation. Saturation adds harmonics and causes mild to moderate compression. When combined, this is a great way to give instruments distinct characters. For example, I'll use this tape plugin by Baby Audio on my vocal and increase the presence to give it a slight lo-fi crunch and some bright sound. I use the same plugin, but with varying settings on some of my keys and the snare for the same reason. Now when I wanted a warmer and softer sound, I could use this warm tape emulation, like with the piano, or if I wanted to fill out the lows while increasing transients, I'd use a warm tube setting, like with my kick. So let's take a listen to how the distinct harmonics and the shaping caused by each saturator help the instruments find a distinct identity. Shape processing with EQ. I'm going to EQ again, but this time instead of just cutting frequencies, I'll amplify and attenuate where needed. Now you could do this before your compression and your saturation, but I find that this setup gives you more control over what frequencies go into and what comes out of your processors. On a lot of the instruments in this mix, I boost the mids and the highs, but notice that I dip around 2.5 kHz. Now this ensured that the instrument didn't compete too much with the vocal. Also, I reintroduced some high-pass filters since some of the processors added unwanted low frequencies. Let's take a listen to how these EQs set us up well for things like temporal and creative processing. Introduce specialty processing. With my dynamics controlled and the general sound getting closer to how I want it to sound, I'll start focusing on specific instruments that I want to give a unique sound to. For example, on my violin, I'll use this Lifeline Expanse plugin by Excite Audio to first introduce some reverb, but then send it to the side image. Now this gives it a unique placement and it helps separate it from other key-like instruments. On the bass, I use the same plugin to emulate a cabinet speaker, as well as add a mild slapback, some digital distortion, and then ensure that the low end stayed mono. Now, plugins like this make it a lot easier to craft a unique sound for a signal by offering multiple effects simultaneously and letting us tweak and rearrange. Let's take a listen to how these gave the affected instruments unique sounds. Start processing the buses. Next I'll process the buses, but first I'll use the pan pots on my channel strips to alter their positions in the mix. Maybe the piano and the keys can go a little to the left or the right, but I want to keep the vocal,
let's have a checklist mix. So we have 1, record at, we haven't figured out what the level is yet. 2, tracks out at 3, bus / groups out at, and then headroom. So we already know that this is -6 to -3. Um, compress. Okay, so record at 18 dB FPS. That's 0. Average RMS VU 18. Peaks -10 to -6. Never exceed -3 dB. Do 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 do. Okay. Peaks -10 to -6. Never exceed -3. Okay. Oh, I didn't know that. Staying below -3 prevents intersample clipping later. I didn't know that. That's really important. I was always wondered why you can't be too quiet. Vocals need headroom for compression later. When mixing, should I use linear, EQ for the subtractive, EQ before compression? Short answer, no. You generally should not use linear phase EQ for subtractive EQ before compression. Use minimum phase EQ for subtractive cuts, 95% losses. Why minimum phase EQ is better for subtractive EQ before compression? When you cut frequencies before compressors, you're shaping what the compressor sees. Minimum phase EQ is ideal here because it prevents natural phase, or it preserves natural phase relationships. It avoids pre-ringing. Linear phase introduces pre-ring, a tiny ghost echo before the transient. Compressors exaggerate the start effect. Interesting. Didn't know that. Linear phase EQ smears transients slightly. Compressors then clamp down on smear transients. When linear phase EQ is actually useful, is a specialty tool, not default, is used for parallel processing to avoid phase cancellation. Okay, that makes sense. Mastering makes sense. Surgical cuts on buses. Yeah, what's up? Um, so yeah, what's up? Linear EQ, good for bus and master. That's good to know. I didn't know that minimum phase EQ and linear EQ were supposed to be used in those two different contexts. I was just using linear EQ on everything. I didn't know that it was better for me to be using minimum phase on my main tracks. Subtractive EQ, minimum phase, then to compression, then to tonal shaping, minimum phase, or analog model EQ. Okay, so that's like saturation, optional linear phase EQ. Only if you need surgical precision, parallel alignment, transparent, high, shelves, boost, rare. If you're doing extremely narrow surgical cuts on a source with phase sensitive content. Okay, so. Alright, interesting. I'm definitely going to bring that up tonight. Use minimum phase EQ for subtractive work before compression. Use linear EQ only when phase accuracy matters more than transient integrity. Da da do. Should I be using a VU or multimeter tool for all my tracks individually pre-master, or should I just do that in the master track pre-master? Here's the truth. You should not meter every individual track with a VU meter. That's slow and unnecessary, not how modern mix engineers work, but you should meter strategically. Where VU meters and multimeters actually matter. No. That's outdated and counterproductive. Why? VU meters measure average loudness, not peaks. Individual tracks have wildly different dynamics. Drums, vocals, bass, synths, guitars all behave differently. You'll end up chasing numbers instead of mixing with intention. Right, that makes sense. Well, you should meter individually. Use metering only on gain-sensitive sources. Use a VU or RMS meter on vocals, bass, guitars, keys, pads, strings. Do not use VU meters on. Okay. Okay.
This bass mix tip might just get me into trouble. It's a classic way to get a pro sounding low end. So I've got this mono bass. What I'm going to do is I'm going to get a Pro MB or any other kind of multiband, and I'm going to compress under 100 hertz. So then I'm going to send it to a bus. On that bus I have a chorus which has a mix of 100, an intensity of 15 and a rate of 0.5. Now after that chorus I'm going to cut everything under 100 hertz. That means the only thing the chorus is affecting is anything above 100 hertz. What this does, it makes a nice wider top end to your bass, and because you're compressing everything under 100, it makes that super tight. Here's how it sounds before and after. This bass mix tip might just get me into trouble. It's a classic way to get a
some stereo bass.
Say if I took a bass and I wanted to spread the mid and mid highs, stereo separate them to make them sound a lot wider, but you want to keep the low frequencies completely mono. You want no stereo separation on those whatsoever. Duplicate the signal and send one to one mixer track and another one to another mixer track, and EQ, like a harsh EQ, roll off the frequencies that I don't want in the high range, and then make that one completely mono. Go to the next track, roll off all the lows up to that point, same point that I left off at over there, and then stereo separate those. Say if I took a bass and I wanted to spread the mid and mid highs, stereo separate them to make them sound a lot wider, but you want...
Okay.
Bass and kick can be difficult to mix, however, there's a lot of room that we can make for the two. Kick frequencies are typically static, so their fundamental will remain the same, but basses change notes, and their fundamentals will change when the new note is played. A good way to blend the two is to dip the kick's fundamental on the bass track, and then add some harmonic distortion to the bass to psychoacoustically replace that frequency.
Huh?
Beats with old school samples have been going viral recently.
Yo, what's up aliens? Ahi here with another tutorial. So today I wanted to cover how to perfectly balance out your subs. I'm going to do this by demonstrating a song that I'm working on. I made this song during a live stream on my Twitch. And it's got a really cool bass line in there, but like the difference in the levels between like the verses and the drops is a little bit different, and so I just wanted to show you how I go about fixing that. The key to being able to balance out your subs is being able to monitor them correctly and also knowing what frequencies are actually being played. And so I use a combination of Span, my favorite plugin, and to be able to monitor and see the frequencies, and also I use a frequency chart here, and basically it tells you what note corresponds to what frequency. I'll provide a link below where you can download this frequency chart for free. So let's get into it. I'll play the bass part. I'll play the verse that I'm trying to balance out. The main line that I'm looking at here is this -30 line. So you can see over here on the right hand side, it lists all these things here at this -30 thing. This is just, I've come to these conclusions from just watching tons of other tracks and observing the balance and levels of other tracks. And generally subs in other tracks that I really like are usually resting between -30 and this -24 mark. And also I've noticed these things from playing out on large sound systems at festivals and clubs and whatnot, how to find this balance where like the sub is nice and hitting, but it's not drowning out all the rest of the sounds. I'll play this and I'll freeze the... So this first note here, you can see it's going above the -30 line, and that's okay, but in relationship to the other sounds in the song, I might want to turn this one down. And you can see this bass note here, it's just barely, it's not even reaching the -30 line, so I'd want to turn that up. So how would I go about doing that? I just use a regular EQ. I'd throw my EQ8 on there. So this first note that's going up above, it's a D sharp. So I'm going to go over here to my chart. So it's this 77.8 hertz. We can see in the top right corner of Span up here that it is indeed around 77.8 hertz. This chart's a little bit more specific. So what I'm going to do is here on my bass track, I'm going to type in 77.8, and I'm going to turn up the Q all the way, and then I'm going to turn down the gain a little bit and balance that out. Let's also look at that lower note that wasn't loud enough. I believe that was this G sharp. So we'll look up G sharp on the frequency chart, and it is 51.9 hertz. So we'll come in here to the EQ and we'll type in 51.9. Now we'll boost this one. I'm going to boost it a little bit more than we ducked the other one because to get the volume up. Let's see how that affected the sub bass. So I think I turned that one, I think I turned the G sharp up a little too much. Let's bring that back down. Yeah.
Wow, so for his bass. Manually. Do do do.
Yeah, that balanced it out quite nicely. I don't know if you've ever been playing live and you notice like certain frequencies are on the bass are like way louder than others. Well, this is that way to like balance them so that way they've got a little bit more consistent feel to them. Now I think that's worked for the verse. Let's listen to the drop. So those wubs, they sound great just here on computer speakers and probably do on my monitors as well, but I just know live that that sub is going to come off a little weak because it's not reaching the -30 mark. So we'll find those wubs here, which I believe are these. Yeah. We'll get the good old...
Instead of just manually doing this, couldn't you just use like a compressor, like just on the very base? What's up, bro? No, literally, bro. I'm trying to master this shit. Like, I'm trying to get to the bottom of all this shit, because there's so much. Like, I literally went to school for this shit, but there's so much shit about this that's like just little gaps in my knowledge that all build up to be a big gap. So I'm trying to make that as small as possible. I think it's impossible to have, there's always going to be stuff you don't know. But trying to get that to be as small as possible so I can just, make the best shit possible. That's my goal. Just make the best music possible. No, literally, like this, honestly, the YouTube internet combo with AI is a crazy way to learn. Technology is pretty cool. You can learn pretty fast. And honestly, it's obviously, you got to cross-reference because, like, for example, with like the mastering shit, AI yesterday was telling me -12, -12, -12, -14, -12, all this for LUFS. And then all these main mastering engineers on YouTube, these guys who like win awards and shit, they were all saying -8, -6. No, exactly. Like there's so many like levels of knowing within producing and engineering and stuff. I'm trying to get up there. Trying to figure out what how to achieve that. All -8. No, literally, yeah. They're all saying -8, -6. And then AI was telling me -14, -12. Which makes sense because that's what Spotify has it at, but it's almost like I've realized it, it's like they're like trying to break the rules in the chance that the streaming services like accidentally play their track too quiet. Like that's why they do that. Because they don't want the alternative of their track being too quiet. They'd rather have their track be too loud. Dude, hell yeah, bro.
EQ, and I think the original note on these was also a D sharp. Cool. So, but I think this is actually the lower D sharp. Yeah, so that low D sharp is going to be 38.9 hertz. So here on the EQ, We'll type in
I feel like there's a way you can just do this with a compressor, but I see what he means. For sure.
38.9. Turn up the Q all the way, and I think we'll have to boost this one quite a bit. I think we'll need to boost it even a little bit more. And look at that, I'm boosting it by 7.6 dB. We're going to boost it even more. We'll go up to 9. Some on 9 dB. See how that affects it. That's a bit closer to where I'm looking to aim. You know what? I'll do.
I think it has to do with a lot of their income too, right? Because it's like if they're mastering engineers, that's their main job, and the main thing that they do, they get it wrong. You know, it plays on Spotify and it's quieter than somebody else's track. Then they have to worry about not getting paid, or So I feel like everyone's incentivized. People say the loudness war is over. I don't think that's true.
Even more, 11 dB.
I feel like the loudness war is probably just getting worse. It's probably...
Yeah, that's hitting over the negative 30 there. That's looking much better. I might want to pull down some of those higher overtones in this sound as well. Yeah, this one right here, I think we might want to pull this one down. What's that?
Hey, I'm Platinum Producer LMC, and this is Unison Beatmaking Secrets. After taking this course, you'll have the knowledge and skills to get big placements, while also knowing the beatmaking industry inside out. I'll be sharing everything I've learned while starting out as a bedroom producer from New Zealand, to now landing major placements with artists such as Gucci Mane, Lil Skies, Nardo Wick, Moneybag Yo, and more, and making a 6-figure income as a professional beatmaker. In this course, I'll be diving deep and showing you how to develop a bulletproof mindset and creative process to set you up for success. The art of sound selection and sound design that you'll use to make your beats stand out. The right way to arrange your beats so big artists will jump on them. My signature mixing and mastering tips that will instantly make your beats sound better. Marketing and branding tips so you can powerfully market yourself to sell your beats and land major placements. Essential business advice so you know how to conduct yourself and not get taken advantage of, plus much more. I've structured this course into 5 key modules with over 25 individual videos. In module 1, I'll show you the mindset of a successful beatmaker, including confidence, morals, beliefs, relationships, goal setting, optimal workflow setup, finishing beats quickly, and eliminating beat block and self-doubt. Then, in module 2, I'll show you how to use samples, including resampling loops, using synths and MIDI, making one-shots, using effects, creating your own drum kits and loops, the business of loops, and making drum loops from scratch. In module 3, we'll cover general arrangement tips, including arranging for placements, tidy projects, chord progressions, drum patterns, melodies, 808s, referencing tracks for production, laying out your beat from start to finish, and how to find the right key and BPM for the artist you want to work with. In module 4, we'll move on to general mixing tips, including my audio engineering background, mixing for placements, mixing vocals, mastering chain, exporting stems, and processing chains for mixing, including my signature tools that took me years to dial in and refine. And finally, in module 5, I'll show you how to create your brand, including marketing yourself, social media posting, collaborating with other producers, connecting and working with top artists, selling your beats online, how to value your work, laying out your terms at the beginning of your deals, business mistakes to avoid, and dealing with artists, labels, management, and lawyers. Unison Beatmaking Secrets condenses everything that I've had to learn the hard way in over 10 years of producing music into 8 hours of no fluff, easy to implement videos designed to get you results fast. And all that without having to experience the confusion, the frustration, and overwhelming thought of this music industry. So if you're serious about becoming a professional beatmaker and landing placements with major artists, then click the button below and enroll in the Unison Beatmaking Secrets now. The information in this course...
Damn, this has been going on for 3 minutes, my bad.
195 hertz. So come over here to the EQ, type in 195.
It's probably the
We'll
first
just
thing
bring
you
this
notice
down
when
a
you hear a
little bit.
song. It's too loud, too soft, or the
Maybe not even
dynamics
that
like
much,
coherent. No,
2
literally.
dB or so.
And so much of that process is trusting yourself. Like you have all this stuff here to tell you the numbers, tell you what metrics you gotta hit. But then at the end of the day, if one mix just sounds better than another, and it's just your gut feelings telling you that, you ultimately have to go with that. It's like the frustrating thing about learning all this stuff, spending all these hours studying on this shit, is that ultimately you realize it comes down to your taste. Like, yes, there's certain things where the Spotify will bring it down, but if that's your personal taste, go for it. You know, it's like there's no rules. It feels like there's rules, but there's no rules. This is so hard.
Yeah, that balances it out a little bit more. You see, it's
There's tried and true methods to get a certain result, though.
not. You can see that it's reaching just over the -30 line, which is okay. But generally, you don't want to have too many things poking out all at once above the -30 line, because that's where it's just anything over the -30 line is going to be super apparent in the mix. And so usually you want to give some sort of lead sound or something like that in that area. Or just whatever is your like lead element, which in this case there's like no other sound happening, so it's okay. But I've seen some like mid basses where like it's spiking up to here past to like -21, and then when you hear it on loudspeakers it just sounds like really muddy and super midi, and you're just like, I don't know, it's not right. Something I want to hone in is the fact that no one in mixing school would ever tell you, oh yeah, find the specific frequency and boost it by 11 dB. You know, like everyone was like, always use EQ to cut away. And the EQ's there to be used in any way that helps the song. So I just want to show y'all that the mentality of using the EQ in this way.
That's a really refreshing thing he just said there, because it's like literally it's so true. It's like, yeah, there's all these rules, but ultimately these plugins are meant to be used. So fucking use them. Turn those knobs. You know? Whatever sounds the best. Even if it's breaking the rules, even if it's going, oh, this is canceling out fade, this is, you know, this is gonna cause noise floor issues later on. Like, you know, that's a hard part, is making that distinction between what's right and what feels right. No, exactly. Pride. Pride is one of the things that'll get in the way of you becoming a better version of yourself in pretty much every element of our lives. It's crazy.
Yeah, that whoa. I think the bass on that could come up. But that's like descending down in pitch. So what I'm going to do is, let's see if I can achieve this. I don't know if this will actually work, but we'll try it out. We're going to use this low shelf. I'm going to turn up the Q quite a bit, and I'm just going to boost this whole low end below 100 hertz, and let's see how that... Oh yeah, that worked really well actually.
That sounded nice. Wait, so you just went through all of that to realize that all you needed to do was just boost a shelf at the bottom? You went through 8 minutes of picking at the specific frequency to boost, and then he just realized that just boosting it all together at the end sounds the best.
Yeah, that worked extremely well. The key to balancing out the subs for me is really about using the EQ to really boost or take away very specific frequencies, because there's only so many frequencies that are happening or should be happening at a time. And also, if you notice, there's never an overlap between any bass sounds in the song, and it's composed that way intentionally. So that way there's only one element in the sub at any given time. And that is how I balance my subs. Now, before I go, I want to show y'all a few of my personal Ableton racks. I'll provide a link below where you can get them as well. I use my magic box to really bring it out in the mix, so check it out. See how that bird sounds really soft? Now I'll just throw on the magic box.
Norton.
Hello, my name is Adam Ferrari,
Oh
Chief Executive Officer of Phoenix Energy.
Holy shit.
I look forward to you.
Yeah, it helps bring it out. It's
Having the last name Ferrari is crazy. That's kind of aura. I'm not gonna
essentially like 4 different types of compression in one thing, but I've set the
Yo,
dials so that way it just
5
works
people in
really
here.
well
Holy
if you
shit.
throw it on. I probably use the magic box more than any of my other plugins. Yeah, on all these bass sounds I use the magic box, even this one. Here without the
There's something
it
kind of
just gives so
stereo
much
about
life
that
to it.
sub that sounds nice.
Oh yeah, and then
I'm
he-
using Turtle Beaches right now, so it's like
here I've also got the Fat Rack, which is part of the Magic Ableton Racks Volume 2. In Serum, this is just, yeah, it's just a saw, I guess, with some phase. And now I add the Fat Rack. And it just gives it so much character and a little bit of distortion. I sort of based the Fat Rack off the sausage fattener. Yeah, it just works really well. A lot of these
nice,
plugins
yeah.
are just meant to be able to throw on and adjust a few knobs and you're good to go.
You know, my next video is just going to be completely speedrunning sound design. And it's so interesting because it's like, where's the line between mastering and mixing? Where's the line between mixing and sound design? And then it's just going to be like, it's just going to keep getting more and more like subjective as to like what these qualifications are for these terms.
Another one of my magic racks is the Radio Vox, which is part of the Volume 2 series. And this one I use on the intro melodic sound, and it sounds like a radio. So here's the original sound. Now with the Radio Vox. Actually, do it even more. Slowly open it up. But I love using that one for intros and outros. All right, aliens, if you like this, please hit that like and subscribe and hit that bell button to get notifications when I release new tutorials. So,
Subscribed. Shouts out to this guy. He's a wizard. There's another wizard looking man right here. Hello, wizard.
Hi, I'm D. Ramirez for Raven Studios, and this...
God, I hope I'm this cool when I'm like, I have no idea how old is he? Dude, look how cool this guy looks. This is what I was talking about. Mixing engineers and master engineers always look so freaking... Like, look at this guy.
Pure.
I hope I'm that cool
Yeah.
when I'm that age.
He's like glistening. He's like shining.
Yeah, he looks like he just got done surfing. And he looks like he just got done surfing and painting at the same time.
This is just the overview
Yo,
video.
what's up?
For the full in-depth breakdown, head over to the Raven Studio.
Hey, I'm live streaming, just a heads up.
I pulled it up.
Oh, what's up? How's it
What do
going?
you want? What is this? What am I looking at?
This is my mind palace right now.
All right, I'm gonna get into the folds of your mind palace
Exactly,
right now.
yeah.
Study.
Yeah, I'm studying mixing right now. Is what I'm doing.
My
Studying
shit
mixing.
exploded, so I
said-
found a software to use on
What's it called?
just like on Google or whatever. And I was about to use it, and I got on my Xbox, and apparently, I think because okay, so I'm pretty sure that like the port for your Xbox, like where you plug in like the cord for your controllers or whatever.
Yeah.
I think that the limiter inside of there was broken or gone, just because there has to be a limiter. It cannot emit how much power it's capable of, because then it will fry your controller. Dude, I plugged in my controller. I left the room to go and get my weed, and I came back and I sat down and I pressed like the power button again, because I seen that it wasn't on, even though I pressed it when I came back in, and it literally just like exploded. It just fucking fucking sparks were going everywhere. My blanket lit on fire. My hair
Holy
lit on
shit.
fire.
And this was like your controller?
my hand got super burned. Dude, it was the cord. It was like it was the cord, like it melted from the inside out and sparks started flying everywhere, but like way too many sparks. Like it should not be emitting that much power. You know what I mean? So I'm pretty
Holy
sure that the
shit.
limiter in my Xbox is broken because it was just that it was flying so far. Like my hair lit on fire in like seconds. My hand had like
What
molten
the
fucking
fuck?
metal from like
Oh
the
my gosh, are
wires
you
had
okay?
melted and flew into my hand. Well, my hand is not okay, but it will be okay. It's healing.
Oh shit, when did this
But it
happen?
hurt like 4 days ago.
Oh shit, that's insane. So like, were you using a different cord or was it just all normal? Like,
It was the same cord, but I think that the port has been going out or whatever it was has been going out for a while because recently, like, my controller keeps disconnecting. And I kept telling myself, I was like, okay, well, the wire's probably just loose. Because my dog will like yank on the controller on accident. So I was like, I probably just fucked up another cord. So I got a new cord. And it was fine for a while. And then it started disconnecting and disconnecting and disconnecting. And I was like, okay, well, for a while, only being 2 weeks before it started disconnecting, I know damn well I didn't break that shit in 2 weeks. I know fucking damn well I didn't break that shit in 2 weeks. So I don't know why I didn't process in my brain, but I was like, I guess I just keep breaking all my cords. It's not the fucking cords. It's the Xbox itself. It's fucking. I just need a new Xbox. I got an Xbox One. That shit is actually. It's trying to kill me because it wants to be put down. It's begging for a mercy killing. It wants to be put down.
damn. Well, now it kind of killed itself. It's fucked up.
Dude, yeah, I can't fucking. And I don't have another controller because my fucking wireless controller. I don't know what happened to it. I genuinely I can't find it. I think I lost it in my most recent move. I must have left it with my old roommates.
Damn. Fuck. Well, it might have been like a cord issue because like it sounds like how much power was getting into it was too much. What's up? What up? What up? What up?
Yeah.
What's good, dude?
Church.
Oh, hello. What's good?
Yo.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm live streaming. Just a heads up.
Oh, alright, bet.
Yeah. So,
Oh, you have a lot of notes.
yeah, I do. Yeah, I'm studying him currently, trying to go deep into mixing right now.
I keep giving up and then just writing lyrics again. I keep trying for a while and then I'm like, okay, but this isn't, I'm failing. And then I just end up writing lyrics again. So that's where
Yeah,
I'm at right now with my
I feel
producing.
that. Yeah, it's tough. It's the more you learn about it, the easier it gets. Though that's the nice thing about it. So keep going.
Holy shit. Are those all tabs at the top? What the fuck am I looking
Yes.
at?
Oh my
Wait a minute.
god.
Yeah.
Those all tabs.
Yeah.
Exit some of those
I'm
tabs.
a little embarrassed about it. Yeah. But
That's a lot of tabs.
that's from the past 2 days of me studying though. So all these are
That's
very
only 2
important.
days?
I have a hard
Damn.
time letting these all go, you know.
Yeah, I feel that.
I mean, at this point, like, do you know where to find something in them?
No.
Or
They're not even loaded. They're like
This sounds so clean. It's insane. Like, imagine how much you can do with this.
yeah, I'm scared to touch a lot of them, honestly. Most of them are like, yeah, okay.
Huh.
Just like plug-in websites and stuff. Because I was finding all those free plugins. By the way, I have a ton of free plugins that I'm gonna put everybody onto in the chat. I'm gonna list them out.
bet.
But yeah, they're like
I gotta get more.
Oh yeah, dude. A bunch of them are like phase viewers and VU meters and analysis stuff. It's like super useful.
That'd be so cool.
Literally. But so your hair caught on fire?
We'll
That's
find
fucking
out in like
insane.
an hour. Wait,
Yeah.
Did you put it out? Her Xbox exploded and lit her on fire. You literally had like
in my brain.
the origin story of like a superhero. That's crazy.
I know, but I didn't get any fucking magical powers. I just lost my ability to game on anything but my PC.
Damn.
And now, because I would always plug in my controller to my PC anyways. I'm a controller gal. So now I'm like actually having to figure out how to fucking be good at PC because like I know the controls, like I can play, I'm just not good at it. I'm like really not good at it. Oh my god, I hopped on Overwatch and like one game went by and I was ready to curse the whole planet for doing this to me. I got to get a new controller.
Damn, yeah, you need to get a whole ass new Xbox.
I need to get a new everything. Bitch, I don't have a couch. I have no couch. I need a couch. I got a chair. I've got a rocking chair that's hella loud.
Damn.
But
Well,
I just got
at least you have that
hot
rocking chair.
Cheetos.
Yeah, at least
I
you
have
have
hot
HGs.
Cheetos and I have a Red Bull and I have weed right here. So all is well.
You're winning.
And I've made some progress on my writing.
Let's
So
go.
that's fine.
What you writing about?
Well, see, I'm trying to test myself because I've been a writer since I was really little. But everything that I write ends up, how do I say this without it sounding stupid? It all ends up twisted. Like it's like any story that I write, it's not music that I'm working on. Well, I'm working on music separately, but what I'm talking about is like novels and shit like that. I've always written books and manga and stuff like that. But it always ends up super fucking twisted and like psychologically like unbearable. Junebug, don't bark. It's okay. You're fine. So I'm trying to test myself because that made me feel like when I came to the realization that all my shit kind of ends up the same genre, it made me feel like I'm not really as creative or like I don't deserve the praise that I do get for my writing because it seems like it's sort of a crutch, always ending up in the same area. So I'm trying to test myself and write something super happy and different than I usually write. And then like she was happy 1 second and then all of a sudden it was like she was hallucinating her whole family and they died when she was 7 and she's been alone all this time and she carries out whole conversations with them and all this time the happy family that everybody's been hearing about and all the food that her family's been making that she's been bringing everybody, it's been her the whole time. She's fully psycho. She does not know that her family is dead. Like she fully sees them and believes that they are at her home, and it's really depressing. And I was like, okay, well, how the fuck did I get here? How the fuck did I get here? She was just happy 2 minutes ago. She was just happy. So
Damn.
that's yeah. So
And is this like
it's a
a
thing. It's a
screenplay
thing.
you're writing, or it's like what are you writing?
Well, it's closer to well, it's a manga because I also draw and stuff like that.
Oh,
I really
cool.
like making manga because manga doesn't have to be super short words. Like some people make manga like that, but you can have pages of words and then pictures and shit. There's no rule on it. But I like to be able to mix in some art as well as some nice stories. And I used to work at SAC Anime and I used to bring my my writings and my books and shit to come in
That's
to
so
the green
cool.
room and get their opinions on it and shit.
That's so
So
cool. Yeah, that's crazy. That's
but
awesome.
it keeps ending up and I'm either killing her off or her friends off or her family off. And it's like I like can they live? Can I let them just live? Can I let everybody just live happily, please?
I mean, you could do like a full switch and just like start writing horror movies.
I do. That's all I do. It's all psychological horror and thriller and horrendous things. The last book that I wrote that I got really good big praise for from the writer of Dr. Stone was it's a play on like a reaper. A reaper ends up having a baby with a witch, but they end up it's never happened before, and that baby ends up being the key to purgatory. And the further and further that she gets from like the heavens and that area and the reaper shit like that from the supernatural world, the more that the purgatory is crumbling. And along with that, she ends up going psycho because she's the key, so she keeps getting pulled onto different planes of existence in different universes. She ends up seeing, her husband murdered like 800 times over and over and over again in different ways. She just keeps getting pulled into these different realities to see obscenities of what will happen if purgatory closes. And so she starts to just go insane. Like, she actually goes fully insane. She doesn't know where she's at half the time. She keeps getting pulled where's what. She doesn't know who's real. She doesn't know which demons are real, or if she's on a different plane of existence, or when she's going to get dragged off. And that one got really, really dark. It got really, really dark and scary, and everybody loved it. But I wanna make something happy, and everybody love it. I wanna make the folks happy, And I just keep making it fucking twisted. I mean, but maybe you guys are twisted. Maybe you guys are freaks, and you guys are happy, gain happiness from watching twisted stuff. Do you guys gain happiness from watching horror movies or reading horror?
I've only ever seen one horror movie in my entire life.
Are you for real? How old are you?
Yeah, 17.
Wow. What horror
And
movie
it
was
was
it?
also like 2 days ago. I saw The Backrooms.
Your first horror movie was The Backrooms?
That's a pretty good
Yeah.
movie. I feel like I liked it.
I've heard
I'd
mixed
give like
reviews.
a
I haven't seen it.
3.5 out of 10.
Oh, you didn't like it? All right.
Not really. I also was watching a horror movie for the plot, though.
Isn't it like a slow burn? Like, most of the mixed reviews that I was hearing is everybody saying that it's just sort of slow. Like, it's hard to.
It depends on like what you want from a horror movie. You know what I mean? For me, I like minimalism. I like stuff that's like you kind of fill in the gaps. And that's
Yeah.
like the whole movie is like filling in, like a lot of it is
It
filling in
wasn't
the
really
gaps.
filling the gaps, to be honest. I
You don't
mean,
think so?
it was, but it was like the gaps are so obvious that like you just come to this. Everyone comes to the same conclusion while watching the movie.
Like what do you mean? Like what conclusion?
Any of it.
Like, you mean just like in general, like anything that was left up to the mind was so easily put together that you just put it all together quick? Is that what you mean,
It was
like,
supposed to be like a
in
metaphor
general?
for stuff, but like
You
the
just
metaphor was like obvious. Like,
so you're saying like the kind of metaphor behind the whole plot was obvious to you, not necessarily like the lore or anything like that, or like because I felt like that to me was kind of
Yeah.
what I was referencing is like the fact that like I felt like they did a good job at like making the backrooms feel endless and like I felt like I couldn't get a good grasp as to like how deep it went or how dark it got. And I thought that that was like cool in some ways, but also I wish it would have gone deeper. Like I wish they would have gone into the more like I don't know if you know about the Backrooms lore, like on the actual web series and shit, on the wiki and stuff. But there's like 1,000 different levels
the
and
wiki
shit.
isn't actually
I know
the
bits and
actual
pieces.
lore of it,
Right?
because
Yeah.
it was going off Kane Pixel's lore of the short films he made. All the
Right.
levels and stuff aren't actually in the official.
Well, maybe you
I don't know. I'm not
honestly
gonna lie.
might have
All
a
I know
better
about the
opinion of it than I do because
Backrooms.
I didn't have enough. I know that what you're saying is true, but I didn't watch his miniseries. I think I only
I just watched an
maybe
iceberg video.
Yeah, I think I might have
That's
watched
the
an
only
iceberg
reason
video
I
as
know
well.
anything about it is an iceberg video, and it's like
Yeah.
5 hours long.
Yeah.
And I had it just in the background
It's
while I
like
was deep cleaning my house.
yeah, exactly. I think that's my also perception of backrooms as well. So yeah, maybe my opinion of it is bad, honestly, but I
I mean,
felt like
what you can't have a bad opinion.
Yeah.
well, you can have an
Well,
uninformed opinion for sure.
yeah.
That's true.
I feel like that's a sort of a gray area. Like, yeah, I mean, but also you just sort of like, you can have a bad opinion if it's not informed. Like if your opinion is, oh, we should go through this tunnel and you don't know that there's a bunch of monsters in there, that's like a bad opinion because it's uninformed, but it's still. I'm too sober to be talking about this right now. Where's my weed? You guys can't hear my ASMR, can you?
No.
Are you eating something?
Okay. Yeah, I'm eating hot Cheetos.
Oh, nice. Yeah, I just felt like
Wait, I wonder if I get.
I didn't personally know like who the scientists were, or what that was, or like how deep the backrooms goes, or how dark it gets. I felt like that to me was like cool because like I got to fill in the gaps of like what do the scientists, what are they doing, how does it work, what are they studying, and I think it's gonna become
It was thought provoking.
Exactly. I think it's going to become unsatisfying to me with the more like TV series they make around it because I know that they're doing that. They're like making sequels and TV series surrounding it, the Backrooms too. And I feel like it's probably going to lose its luster to me
Aren't they
if I
making a
watch
game
it.
for it or something? They're making a Backrooms game.
I thought it kind of started as a game. Am I correct or am I tripping?
I thought
It
I heard
started
that
as
they're
just like
making
a
a new
random
one.
picture on 4chan.
Oh, really?
I thought I heard that they were making. Yeah, I thought I heard that they were making like a Backrooms game recently. I know that there's like versions of the Backrooms in different games, like fucking stupid. Like Roblox has like a
Yeah,
Backrooms map,
Roblox,
and
they
Fortnite.
got the best
But
ones. Those are so fun.
I've never. I can't play. I can't play Roblox.
Why not?
Can't do it. Well, one on Xbox I physically couldn't because it wouldn't let me use my triggers. And I got it just to play Dress to Impress, and I couldn't use any of my triggers, so I couldn't get dressed. So I kept being naked every round. So that was fun. And then I tried to play a boxing game, and it still wouldn't let me use the triggers, so I gave up. And then when I got my PC, it was somebody that I used to play with a long time ago. But they asked me, they were like, "Hey, will you get Roblox?" And I was like, "Okay, yeah." So I got Roblox, and it just didn't like. I don't know. Maybe it's like one of those games that you need to be with people that like you really enjoy or something. But I found it just to be sort of like a mid-tier experience. But I was just sort of like I don't think I've ever once in my life sat here and been like, oh my god, I need to play Roblox. So I was on there, and it was just like I was there. It felt way too close to being in a VR chat room. I will say that. It felt way too close to being in a VR chat room. I felt like a furry was going to come after me at any second.
Yeah, no, that's possible. That could happen to you for sure. But
But I'm also kind of I'm a bitch, so that's also kind of a bitchy opinion. I if I feel like a furry is going to come after me in any game, I'm probably just going to uninstall it.
well, I mean, shouts out to the furries. You know.
No, I worked at Sack Anime. These furries are no joke.
There's I feel like they're a misunderstood group of people in my opinion, the furries, the furry community.
I think that it's reasonable to feel that way when you haven't met so many of them that sort of prove the stereotype wrong. Like me working at 3 different cons for over 6 years. I flew to like different states to go work at different cons because I worked directly under the CEO. So I would help his friends out at their cons and shit like that. I was always going everywhere. And so I can respect the idea because I was the same way. It's where it's like at the end of the day, everybody just deserves to be happy, right? You know, if that makes them happy, it makes them happy. You don't know if they're going to be really weird or not. You know, just because you're in a specific group doesn't mean that you're like the majority of them, or the majority of them are like what people perceive them to be. But I worked for like almost 7 years and back and forth at all these cons, and I just like, oh my god, it just like I was proven right over and over and over again. They like every time, like I'd sit there and I'd be like, it smells like dank at the Lego counter and the Lego booth. Why is that happening? And they'd be like smoking like full fucking pipes and like little mini bongs in their fursuit. They fucking
That's
I met
legendary.
a
I'm not
lot
gonna
of
lie.
them who
That's
would go
pretty
like
legendary.
straight towards the lolly sections. Like furries are always the
Oof.
first ones to get in line for like the lolly sections and the weird fucking
Yikes.
shit. Like you go, they do actually. They just do. They stink really, really bad. They always stink. They're always pretty disrespectful when I have to give them directions. Like if like like they just always assume this victim complex, which yes goes hand in hand with like everybody always talks shit about them. So it's like when I come over and I'm like, hey, I need you to go to this section or whatever. They're like, why? You're saying I'm in the way? You're saying is it because of my suit? Am I in the way? Like they would always make a problem out of it. And I'm like, no, like you're blocking the line. You're blocking the line. What do you mean? What do you there's a 6-year-old right behind you waiting to get a signature and you're blocking the line for what? And she'd be like, oh, to get a picture. And I'm like, you have to pay for pictures, right? And they'd be like, well, I just thought I'd like get close enough to steal one. And it's like, you see my name tag, right? Like, are you slow? Like, that I work here, right? Why are you telling me that you're going to steal a picture, which is not allowed? And you can get kicked out and banned from the con if you do that. Sneaking pictures of the guests and shit is really bad. So, and they're just so weird. And they'd like, I'd walk past them and they'd all be talking about like sexual things, about like sexual webtoons with animals.
Wow. Okay.
Like, oh, I just can't. They'd like sit there and talk about like their paws. Oh, why would you call them their paws? Don't talk. Oh, I'm so sorry. I'm freaking out. I can't. They prove one after another that they are perverted, that it's not just some fun thing, that they do like animals. It's so weird. I don't get it. I don't get it.
I definitely don't co-sign that for sure. Definitely,
It's just too big of a risk.
All right. Well, I respect your perspective. And your yeah, I've never been to a Comic-Con event or anything like that in my life. Or you said Retcon? What's Retcon?
So there's SatCon, and then I went to RoCon, which is in Roseville, California. And then there's a con in New York that I flew to twice to help out over there, because my boss is like best friends with the guy who runs that one down there. And they were really, really short. This was in COVID, and for some reason they were still holding the event. And for some reason I also went, but I needed the money really bad, and they were giving me way extra to go there. And I think I worked one. They're all in California, other than the one in New York. But the New York cons are always really, really crazy. New York cons are like enormous. That's the shit that like people take road trips to go to that one. You know what I mean? Like that's like the Comic-Con that you'll go to is in New York.
Dang it! I didn't
I know that there's
know any of this.
There's a really good one in LA. There's a really, really, really good one in LA. But to be honest, I prefer the one in New York. I think that the one in LA is way too packed full of people who aren't actually fans. It's like just people who are there because they wanted something to do. And then it's just sort of like they always let way too many people in, and you can tell it's above the limit. Because I worked there, I know like I would have to count heads and make sure that people weren't sneaking in, because if it's above the limit, then you can get shut down. And they always let way too many people in LA. They're way too lenient about just like letting people sneak in and go, oh yeah, just bring in your 3 extra friends. So then you're like shoulder to shoulder with everybody.
And everybody's dressed up like Goku and shit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're like fucking inhaling hairspray.
That's so funny. Yeah. I think I'd imagine it'd just be like it'd be fun in certain scenarios though, like, dressing up as your favorite character. And it's kind of like I
Oh, it
went to Renaissance Fair recently, and I
is.
dressed
Ooh.
up as like a wizard and shit, and that was fun.
I saw that.
Yeah, that dude.
I love Ren
Highly
Fair.
recommend. Highly recommend. But
I want to go to a Ren Fair so bad.
they do kind of wax you down when it comes to the drinks and stuff. I paid $5 for a water. I thought that was kind of crazy, but
Ooh.
Are you for real? $5 for water? I hate to see what their alcohol costs.
well, it honestly ended up being
Jimbo.
$10 because they only accepted cash, and then the fee to get money out was $5. So really, I spent $10 on that water, but it is what it is, you know. It's all right.
Jesus.
Yeah.
Well, that's
Capitalism.
absolutely insane. Capitalism. Let's go.
And it's like they were doing the airport psychology, you know what I mean, where it's like you're stuck there, so you can only buy shit from there. So
You don't have a choice.
yeah, they can make the prices whatever they want.
I gotta bring a flask when I go to a Ren fair.
Yeah, and say it's your health potion.
Yeah.
This is
actually my cancer medication. You can't take it away from me.
That'd be crazy. Yeah, your cancer medication is in the form of a flask is wild.
Yeah, it's part of the costume. It's like a prop. You know what I mean? I can't go to a Ren fair and whip out a plastic bottle of medication. Come on now, I gotta hide it in a little flask.
Yeah, I would just put it in in a potion bottle. That'd probably get through easily. I've seen people with stabs with like buzz balls at the top. That's funny.
I wish I liked buzz balls because everybody hypes them up so much.
I did some no, not for Buzzball. Wait, yes, it was. I've done music for Buzzball.
What?
Yup.
What the hell?
Some
That's
music.
sick as fuck. Congratulations.
Yeah, they're fun. Fun company. Actually, was it Buzz? I'm thinking of what's the other one? The box.
Beatbox?
Yeah, Beatbox. It's for Beatbox. Not Buzzball. Beatbox.
Wait, I'm so curious. I want to know. I want to see. Do you have the music that you?
I do. Not at this computer, but I'll show you another time for sure. I'll show you some of my sound design stuff that I do. I usually try to
Sick.
keep it separate from my Space Cat stuff.
That's understandable. I'd probably do the same thing.
Yeah, try to keep it professional. Gotta have a professional side of yourself, and you gotta have a non-professional side.
Did you know
of
you
yourself,
can't have a hot Cheeto? You can't have a hot Cheeto, no. Don't look at me like that. Don't look at them like that. They're not going to defend you. You think they're going to tell me to give you a hot Cheeto? Don't growl at me.
Don't go. Why is your dog want a hot Cheeto?
Because she's a freak.
Why is it even something that your dog desires? That's just crazy.
She's anything. If it's anything that she sees you eating, she's gonna want it. Juno, you can't have a hot Cheeto. No. No. Do not. No, do not. Hi, Miss Liddy. Hi, gorgeous. Hey, want to do me a favor and get out of my face, please? Personal space? Please? Personal space?
I gotta listen to this guy talk about sub-bass.
Videos.com, where you'll find the full video plus loads of other content to level up your music production. Today, we're diving into sub-bass, what it is, how to design it, shape it, control it, and make sure it actually hits on every system, whether you're making house, down-tempo, or anything in between. If your low end isn't right, your whole track suffers. So let's fix that. Let's go deep, literally. Okay, here we are in Ableton. Now, apologise for any noise that you can hear around me. It's a rather hot day today, and I don't have the luxury of air conditioning, the beauty of living in London, right, for those 3 days that you need it of the year. So, yes.
Yeah, Little Muffin, do you see this guy? This guy's fucking a wizard, man.
I apologise for any noise that you might be able to pick up on the microphone around this. Now, we're going to get into creating sub-bass. Sub-bass is one of the hardest things to achieve for a number of reasons, but I think with a bit of understanding about how to achieve it, what it is, and the best way to go about it, once you get your head around it, it'll give you some sort of a head start into creating sub-bass. Imagine creating sub bass on a system without this kind of knowledge would be really quite difficult, and you might end up making a little bit of a mess of it. So we're going to go back to the basics here, and I'm going to sort of give you the fundamentals of sub bass, bass in general, actually, and that should help you moving forwards. Now, we're just going to focus on sub. I'm not going to be talking about mid bass or the sort of sound design of mid bass. It's just sub. Sorry if you've seen this already, but I'm going to be using this in the context of the sort of kind of music that I make. Talking of which, I've just created a very simple drum groove here. It's more than sort of 90s tip. I'll just give you a snippet. There is a track that's going to come together out of this, but for now, we'll just use the drums.
No one was ready for what just happened. Seedance 2.0 just dropped, and it keeps your character consistent. Before
kind of break BT sort of thing. Right, so let's get into sub bass. I am using Ableton, of course. Now, you can see here I've got operator. Now, why operator? Well, operator is great for demonstrating sub bass because it defaults with a sine wave sound. Now, I'm also going to use Pro Q4 here, so I'm going to open up this one. Now, before we get into it, when I was talking to my drum and bass friends, and I've got a few of them, and I asked the question, what is the best key to write bass in? Now, key, I'm not talking about your house keys, I'm talking about musical keys, you know, from C to C. There is generally the same answer from everyone, and the key is, well, we'll get into it now. Why does key matter? Well, I'll show you, because the key, the note in which you play your bass, will give you a different frequency, and we definitely need to cover, for sub bass, we need to cover certain frequencies. So let's look at that. I'm going to split up my, this is very crude, by the way, I'm going to change this. I'm not going to go into great detail here, you can learn a bit more about that on the Raven Studio site, but I'm just going to split this up. 60 hertz there, up to 300 there. Again, this is just crude. Now, 60 hertz down to 20 hertz, which is the sort of the range. 20 hertz is supposed to be the range of human hearing, although you can still feel it below 20 hertz. Now, 60 hertz to 20 hertz is, that area there is the sub frequency, right? Okay, that's the frequency that you feel. You feel it in your stomach. It flaps your trousers. It shakes your neighbor's teeth. It's the sort of brown.
He said flaps your trousers.
Noise. That's the sub. It's the feeling. It's the kind of, you know, it gives you the emotion. You might not necessarily be able to hear it on a phone speaker, but sub is something that you kind of, you know, you feel. Especially in a club, making house music like I do. Sub on a big system can literally rattle your teeth, right? So, but the problem is with sub is that if you don't have any frequencies above 60 hertz, then there's a good chance you're likely not to be able to hear it on something like a phone or a Bluetooth speaker or you know, small earbuds. Even these don't go down that low. These are pretty good studio headphones. So sub bass is great and all. We need to sort of cover those frequencies between 60 and 20 hertz, but we also need to be able to hear the bass, okay? Because it's no good creating a really thunderous sub bass line. You just can't hear it anywhere. You can only hear it. You can only feel it. You can't hear it. So let's look at that. Firstly, though, let's sort of look at what note works best for sub. So I'm just going to go over to this here and open this up here. I'm going to play some notes on my piano roll using the default operator sound, which defaults with a sine wave, okay? What is a sound? So I'm going to play C3 and you'll see what happens. Look at that. Now, C3, I think there's a transpose on here, so let me bring it down. I'm going to take that off. Yes, the transpose is there for a reason, actually. So let's go back to this. If I play C3, look at the frequency. It's up there. It's up just above, you know, just below 300, so around about 300 hertz. And you can see it's a very specific, and that is what's known as the fundamental. It's just playing the note. Let's go down an octave, which is down to the C2. Where does that sit? That sits there in between, you know, I don't know what frequency that is. It's roughly around about, let's have a look. Let's catch it before it dies. It's about 120 hertz. Yeah, okay. Now, that is not bass. We need to get it into this region here. So let's go down to C1. Okay, we're getting somewhere, right? But still, look, we're on the edge of that sub-bass frequency, okay? It's right at 60 hertz. We're not into this sub-range. Let's go down to C0, see what happens. Oh, look. I mean, that is like flapping my head inside my headphones. But that is too low, because that is not a frequency you can hear. That would literally, that's going into that subsonic range as well, look. Down there. So let's move up, and I'll go up a note at a time, and we'll see what we're looking for is to get that note that sits in between there, like that. So, C sharp. Get better. D. Okay, so that's in there, yeah. D sharp, that's cool. E, look at that.
Dude, I can't even fucking hear that. What the hell? Is my hearing that bad?
F. Now, F is the note that the drum and bass producers like to work in because of this reason. Look, it covers all of those frequencies in between 60 and 20. Look at that. Now, you can go up
hear that. Holy shit.
Even higher. Got F sharp. Still got that there. G, yep. G sharp, yep. A, yep. A sharp. And then B. B is right on the edge. So, what do we get from this? We get the fact that C is probably too high or too low. So, not the best note to write your bass line in. Now, D, you know, C sharp, definitely sort of still too low. D, you could argue you could get away with. But the optimum note for me is F. So, you can go.
Yeah, I can hear that.
Anywhere between F and B. And that will be still within that subsonic range. Okay, so next up we want to know, right, so we've got our sub covered. How do we get those frequencies in there? Well, with operator, we can simply do this. If we turn this into this mode, we get 4 discrete oscillators. Turn that mode on there, and we get 4 separate oscillators. I'll turn up the level of this one, bring the envelope up, and I'm going to increase the coarse octave by 1. So that is an octave above. And look what we get now. If I play that same note of F, look, we've got exactly double the frequency. So 60 and 120. We're into that range there, and that's the range that you can hear on speakers. Let me make a sort of simple offbeat bass line in F, just to demonstrate this, and then we can go from there. So if I go there. Okay. Okay, you can hear that. If I take that oscillator off, it's there. You can feel it, hopefully. I don't think you'll be able to hear it because most of you will be looking on a phone or whatever, a laptop or something. But when you bring this one in. So that's your first trick. So we've got our sub frequency covered, but by adding that extra octave above, using the same sine wave, we've brought in these extra frequencies. These are what you can hear on a phone. So that's one way of creating an audible sub, okay? The next way to create an audible sub is to...
What is this?
The envelope up, and I'm going to increase the coarse octave by 1. So that is an octave above. And look what we get now. If I play that same note of F, look, we've got exactly double the frequency. So 60 and 120. We're into that range there, and that's the range that you can hear on speakers. Let me make a sort of simple offbeat bass line in F, just to demonstrate this, and then we can go from there. So if I go there. Okay. Okay, you can hear that. If I take that oscillator off, It's there, you can feel it, hopefully. I don't think you'll be able to hear it because most of you will be looking on a phone or whatever, a laptop or something. But when you bring this one in, so that's your first trick. So we've got our sub-frequency covered, but by adding that extra octave above, using the same sine wave, we've brought in these extra frequencies. These are what you can hear on a phone. So that's one way of creating an audible sub, okay? The next way to create an audible sub is to just have one oscillator, but use distortion. Now, you can use distortion within the operator itself. How do we do that? Well, we change this to MS2 mode, and then look, as I do that, look here, we get filter drive that appears. MS2 mode, boom, filter drive. What's filter drive? Well, it's distortion. Look what happens as I bring it in. Let me solo it so we can hear it. Sounds nasty, but we're bringing in those extra frequencies. Look, it's starting to fill up those frequencies between 60 and 300, which is just sort of bass that's audible. Like that. And what you can do, you can then use the filter to filter the frequencies out. Look at that. And you can use that to taste, using a bit of resonance as well. Then you've got an audible.
Yeah, it's rattling my head.
That's crazy.
So that's another way of bringing in those harmonics. Another way to bring in the harmonics is to take this off altogether, I'll bring that down, to change the waveform. Now, a sine wave is a very sort of pure frequency. Look at it, it just contains the fundamental, just the note that's playing. Now, if we change this from a sine wave to a triangle, it's a combination of a square wave and a sine wave, which is a triangle. It gives you those extra harmonics. Look at this. Okay, you've got these extra frequencies, which again you could then, look at that, brings those extra frequencies in, which arguably you could hear on small speakers. But not that much, okay? So the next one is to look at the different waveform, which would be a square wave. If I go square 64, look, you can see all these harmonics show up in the actual operator itself. Look at the waveform when I play this. Very sort of hollow sounding, uneven harmonics are added, but it's adding in those extra harmonics, which you can then filter out. It's quite strong sort of frequency content, which enables you to sort of pick out the note. There you go. That's another way of doing it. You can use something like, not only can you use a square wave, but you can use a sawtooth. Same sort of thing. Let me solo that again. You get a different sound because these are the even harmonics that it brings in. Look at that. You've got the fundamental, then you've got the double.
What the fuck? Using operator for bass? Huh? Dude, this guy's doing crazy shit that I just truly don't understand. It's going over a lot of it's going over my head. I'm not gonna lie. I'm not gonna lie. I just gotta redo all this because I'm sorry. I just have to redo this because.
Let's go down an octave, which is down to the C2. Where does that sit? That sits there in between. You know, I don't know what frequency that is. It's roughly around about. Let's have a look. Let's catch it before it dies. It's about 120 hertz. Yeah. Okay. Now that is not bass. We need to get it into this region here. So let's go down to C1. Okay, we're getting somewhere, right? But still, look, we're right on the edge of that sub-bass frequency, okay? It's right at 60 hertz. We're not into this sub-range. Let's go down to C0, see what happens. Oh, look. I mean, that is like flapping my head inside my headphones, but that is too low because that is not a frequency you can hear. That would literally, that's going into that subsonic range as well, look. Down there. So let's move up, and I'll go up a note at a time, and we'll see what we're looking for is to get that note that sits in between there, like that. So, C sharp. We get better.
Ooh,
D. Okay, so that's in there, yeah. D sharp, that's cool. E, look at that. F. Now, F is the note that the drum and bass producers like to work in because of this reason. Look, it covers all of those frequencies in between 60 and 20. Look at that. Now, you can go up even higher. Go F sharp. Still got that there. G, yeah. G sharp, yeah. A, yeah. A sharp. And then B. B is right on the edge. So, what do we get from this? We get the fact that C is probably too high or too low. So, not the best note to write your bass line in. Now, D, you know, C sharp,
the brown
definitely
note
still too
down
low.
there.
D, you could argue you can get away with. But the optimum note for me is F. So, you can go anywhere between F and B. And that will be still within that subsonic range. Okay. So, next up, we want to know. Right, so we've got our sub cover. How do we get those frequencies in there? Well, with operator, we can simply do this. If we turn this into this mode, we get 4 discrete oscillators. Turn that mode on there, and we get 4 separate oscillators. I'll turn up the level of this one, bring the envelope up, and I'm going to increase the core.
This guy unlocked the brown note 30 years ago. He's been using it every day ever since.
Octave by 1. So that is an octave above. And look what we get now. If I play that same note of F, look, we've got exactly double the frequency. So 60 and 120. We're into that range there, and that's the range that you can hear on speakers. Let me make a sort of simple offbeat bass line in F, just to demonstrate this. And then we can go from there. So if I go that. Okay. Okay, you can hear that. If I take that oscillator off, it's there, you can feel it, hopefully. I don't think you'll be able to hear it because most of you will be looking on a phone or whatever, a laptop or something. But when you bring this one in, so that's your first trick. So we've got our sub-frequency covered, but by adding that extra octave above, using the same sine wave, we've brought in these extra frequencies. These are what you can hear on a phone. So that's one way of creating an audible sub, okay? The next way to create an audible sub is to just have one oscillator, but use distortion. Now, you can use distortion within the operator itself. How do we do that? Well, we change this to MS2 mode, and then look, as I do that, look here, we get filter drive that appears. MS2 mode, boom, filter drive. What's filter drive? Well, it's distortion. Look what happens as I bring it in. Let me solo it so we can hear it. Sounds nasty, but we're bringing in those extra frequencies. Look, it's starting to fill up those frequencies between 60 and 300, which is just sort of bass that's audible. Look at that. And what you can do, you can then use the filter to filter the frequencies out. Look at that. And you can use that to taste, using a bit of resonance as well. Then you've got an audible. So that's another way of bringing in those harmonics. Another way to bring in the harmonics is to take this off altogether, I'll bring that down, to change the waveform. Now, a sine wave is a very sort of pure frequency. Look at it. It just contains the fundamental, just the note that's playing. Now, if we change this from a sine wave to a triangle, it's a combination of a square wave and a sine wave, which is a triangle. It gives you those extra harmonics. Look at this. Okay, you've got these extra frequencies, which again you could then, and that brings those extra frequencies in, which arguably you could hear on small speakers. But not that much, okay? So the next one is to look at the different waveform, which would be a square wave. If I go square 64, look, you can see all these harmonics show up in the actual operator itself. Look at the waveform when I play this. Very sort of hollow sounding, uneven harmonics are added, but it's adding in those extra harmonics, which you can then filter out. It's quite strong sort of frequency content, which enables you to sort of pick out the note. There you go. That's another way of doing it. You can use something like, not only can you use a square wave, but you can use a sawtooth. Same sort of thing. Let me solo that again. You get different sound because these are the even harmonics that it brings in. Look at that. You've got the fundamental, then you've got the double, then you've got half of that, etc., etc. These are even harmonics, giving you a pleasant sound. Again, filter it out. More audible sub-bass. Now, I did promise that I was going to show you this track that I've made, so let's bring the track in. And this is something that I sort of knocked up, sort of ravey kind of thing. This is the sound. So now you can really hear that bass. Okay, so let's show you how I did that. I'm going to create this. I'm going to copy this pattern over here. Right, operator bass. And first thing I'm going to do is bring it down an octave. Let's take a listen. Too high. So bring it down an octave. Second thing I'm going to do is increase the release because I want the sound to sort of decay a little bit. Now the release is there on the oscillator, so let's do that. Can you hear how they sort of overlap in each other? Well, and you now need to click this and make it monophonic. One voice, one note. So one note cuts the other one off. Now we can bring in a pitch envelope. What does a pitch envelope do? Well, it adds a sort of a high-pitched sweep on every note, and you can control it with the decay. Get the decay short enough and it creates like a thump at the beginning of the note, which again helps the note stick out. Okay, next thing we can do is we can bring in that second oscillator. Let's activate that. And then you've got level control of that. We should be looking at the frequency of this while we're doing it, because look, without this oscillator, okay, bring this oscillator in.
Dude, I can't even keep up with this video. I can't understand it. Is he just explaining it by it, or am I just like, is it just truly above my head knowledge? I'm gonna subscribe to this guy. Okay. Oh God. All right, I might need to take a freaking break. I need to take a freaking break. I need to get some food before tonight. I'm about to teach a class. I'm about to teach a freaking class.
Welcome to Sage Audio. Today we're talking about how to mix mid-range. But first, if you have a mix that you need mastered, send it to us at sageaudio.com to receive a free mastered sample of it. Mid-range saturation. In my opinion, the best way to add a lot of power to your mid-range is to use frequency-specific saturation to create harmonics which make your fundamentals more easily perceived. This distortion will make the range sound full and impressive by amplifying in-key aspects of the range. I like using FabFilter's Saturn II for this, but Trash 2 by Isotope is another good frequency-specific saturation plugin. Let's take a listen. Mid-range upward compression. Using the FabFilter multiband, I can create upward compression by combining the compression setting with a positive range. This means that the quieter aspects of the range being compressed will be captured and amplified from the bottom up. With that in mind, I can isolate my mid-range and create upward compression. Low-level compression creates a very full sound, so use it whenever your mids are sounding weak. Let's take a listen. Subtle mid-range reverb. If the mid-range of a mix bus, stem, or instrument is sounding too separate, or like it needs to be blended a bit, use very subtle high-density reverb on your mids. The high number of reflections caused by a high-density setting ties everything together. Again, use this at a lower setting if you're using it on a stem or mix bus, but can be used more aggressively on an individual instrument. Let's take a listen. Quick mid-range downward compression. If you need to control your mid-range's dynamics, set up a parallel track using a bus or auxiliary send. First insert an EQ with a high and low pass filter, then insert a compressor. Use a quick attack and a medium release, about 100 to 200 milliseconds will work well. This way you can compress the mid-range and significantly control it. Then blend that compression back in with the original signal. Let's take a listen. aggressive mid-range bus. Following the last concept, use the same EQ settings on the auxiliary send, but then introduce aggressive stylistic compression. After that, use a saturator with moderate settings, and lastly, use a low-level compressor. This will isolate the mid-range, distort the mid-range, and then increase the detail. This can sound really intense, so use this if you want a really aggressive mid-range. Let's take a listen. Subtractive EQ on mid-range. If your mid-range is sounding boomy or disharmonious in some way, find out the key of your song and then reference the notes that are being played. For example, if your song is in the key of A major, a C shouldn't be too prevalent. In this case, find the frequency that corresponds to C and attenuate it. Cut these disharmonious notes from your mid-range, but only by about 3 to 6 dB. No need to do it too aggressively. Let's take a listen. Bouncy mix bus mid-range. On your mix bus, so when you're affecting the full mix, use a multi-band dynamics processor and use upward expansion on the mid-range. Use a quicker attack and then try to time the release with the BPM of the track to give it a bouncy musical feel. I'd recommend doing this by only a couple dB and ensure that the threshold isn't being triggered too often. Let's take a listen. Clear mid-range. The upper edge of mid-range may need some attention too, since that's where you're gonna have the majority of your vocal and clarifying instrumentation. Use a high mid-band or an exciter to add some clarity and detail to this section. Fresh Air by Slate is a good option. Also, Isotope's exciter can be made frequency specific, making it great for adding clarity to the high mids. Let's take a listen.
So what I'm noticing is a crazy technique that like a lot of these professional top end people are using is they are busing all of the elements of like most clarity. So like the mono sub, the top end air, the mid highs, like they're all busing super compressed EQ'd out versions of all of these things, and then using those buses as like faders to blend in, like if you want more air on your track or if you want more mid-range stereo-ness to it or more mono sub, you can affect those buses rather than trying to do that within the actual track. So I'm not seeing things exceed 8 or like 6 decibels max. So everything's like keep it at -6. Okay, so it's all about just keeping your tracks and your mix buses within these ranges so you're not clipping or metering hot at all. Which is tough. It's tough to do that and to not have like built-in limiters to each and every single one of your tracks. But I guess you can just, if you're just really intentional about it, it's tough. Because and when you're mixing your tracks, you want it to get it to sound hot immediately. So that's tough.
This is why the top end of your mix doesn't sound pro. I've spoken many times about cutting unwanted low frequencies, but have you considered doing the same in the top end too? For example, if you've got a synth that's mainly playing the lead line, the main frequencies will be in the mids. So all this ultra high stuff is just waffle taking up needed space. Go through your mix.
The hard part too is all the floor with the transients on the high end is always going to be a issue when it comes to your master with compression. You know, you might have a lot of headroom, but then if it's high end dominant and you start compressing hella, then you're just going to get a ton of that transients.
And cut these off where they're not needed. Then you'll end up with a really clean, posh, spacious top. If you want to grab my EQ guide, just comment EQ below and I'll send you it. This is why the top end of your mix doesn't sound pro. I've spoken many times about cutting unwanted.
Welcome to Sage Audio. Today we're covering how to mix high end. To get the most from your music, watch the entirety of each chapter for a complete understanding of the topic. But first, if you have a mix that you need mastered, send it to us to receive a free mastered sample of it with a link in the description. High end on vocals. For this video, I'll make a DAW mix's high end cut through and introduce processing in sequential order. When mixing, vocals can be a challenge to make right, but not harsh. But here's the quickest way to accomplish that. Start with a de-esser and use a shelf filter to attenuate the high frequency range. Then use an equalizer to amplify the range that the de-esser attenuated. The Weiss de-esser is a great option for this, but use whatever works for you. Let's listen to a before and after and pay particular attention to how the high end is present, but the sibilance of the vocal is no longer aggressive.
What would I do without you, my life? You be my mind, you still my eyes. I don't wanna leave this, keep near your side. Oh, yeah.
Dynamic stereo expansion of highs. If you have a stereo instrument like a drum loop or synth, you can use a dynamic mid-side EQ to amplify the high frequency range and expand the stereo image simultaneously. To do this, create a high frequency shelf, make it dynamic, and place the band on the side. If you have a mid-side EQ that doesn't have a dynamic option, that's fine too. Let's take a listen and notice the subtle brightening and widening that this effect has.
What would I do without you, my life? You be my mind, you still my eyes. I don't wanna leave. Oh, yeah.
If you're enjoying the video, consider hitting the like button. It really helps us bring you more videos. Distorting transients with compression. When mixing drums, we can use specific settings to accomplish transient expansion via mild distortion. What I'll do is set a super quick attack and release time so that the waveform distorts when compression occurs. Then, I'll use a hard knee and auto makeup gain. If available, also isolate the compressions monitoring to only the high frequencies via an internal sidechain and use an aggressive algorithm. Let's listen and pay particular attention to how this amplifies the hi-hats on this drum loop.
What would I do without you, my life? You be my mind, you still my eyes. I don't wanna leave this, keep near your side. Oh, yeah.
Frequency-specific transient expansion. Similar to Chapter 2, this trick is going to take a special plugin, but if you have a Ventide split EQ, you can amplify the transients of the high frequency. Using the green or transient band, I'll amplify the highs with a shelf by a few dB. In turn, the plugin will amplify the quickest parts of the high frequency range, making it brighter and more dynamic. This EQ works particularly well on drums, similar to the compression discussed in the previous chapter. Let's take a listen and notice how quickly this EQ can amplify high frequency transients.
What would I do without you, my life? You be my mind, you still my eyes. I don't wanna leave this, keep near your side. Oh, yeah.
Only a small percentage of people that watch our videos are subscribed, so if you're enjoying the video, consider subscribing. It's free, and you can always change your mind. Send instruments to high frequency bus. For this trick, I'm going to send some of my instruments to a bus, then insert a linear phase EQ that isolates the high frequencies by using a high pass filter. This EQ needs to be linear phase so that the bus stays in time with the original signal. Now that I have these frequencies isolated, I can increase the level of the auxiliary track to increase the high end of these instruments. Let's take a listen to this trick and see what exactly is being amplified.
What would I do without you, my life? You be my mind, you still my eyes. I don't wanna leave this. Oh, yeah.
Reverse New York style compression. Typically, New York style compression includes setting up a parallel compression on an aux track, then equalizing it, but in this track, we'll use the same auxiliary send from the previous chapter and compress after the equalization. This way I'm only compressing my high frequencies, giving me a lot more control. I'm going to use the same compression settings from chapter 3 and distort my transients using short attack and release settings and a hard knee. Let's listen to how this combination creates an enjoyably clicky sound that works really well when blended in with the original signal.
What would I do without you, my life? You be my mind, you still my eyes. I don't wanna leave this. Oh, yeah.
High frequency tube distortion. High frequency distortion is a quick way to increase the high end of an instrument. Furthermore, a tube distortion setting will expand transients, making them easier to hear. If we combine these two concepts, then high frequency tube distortion is a great way to...
Ooh, interesting. That's good. High frequency tube distortion. Because essentially what that's doing is adding a lot of dense balanced harmonic information all the way up at that high end, so that you don't have to boost like a floor of shitty high end. It's just like musically sounding nice, high frequency tube saturation. Yeah, and with the Saturn's good
to increase
too.
high-end detail. I'll use Saturn 2 and isolate the tube distortion to my highs. I'll also amplify the highs to make the keys I'm affecting a little brighter. Let's listen and notice how high-frequency distortion is really helping to augment the key track's clarity.
What would I do without you, my life?
Out of everyone, Sage Audio is for sure the GOAT.
You be my mind, you're still my eyes. I don't wanna leave this. Oh,
I'm learning the most from Sage
Hence,
Audio
Chroma
for
Reverb.
sure.
On the same auxiliary send we used in chapters 5 and 6, I'm going to insert what I think is a pretty special reverb plugin. Logic stock reverb isn't considered a great reverb due to its somewhat unnaturally bright and shiny sound, but it's useful for that very reason. In the main page, I'll use the area algorithm and increase the density to 100%. Then in the details window, I'll boost the highs, emphasize early reflections, and increase the reflections stereo width. Let's listen to the subtle high frequency layer that this reverb creates in our mix.
what would I do without you, my life? You be my mind, you're still my eyes. I don't wanna leave this kid near your side. Oh, yeah.
Easy bright sound. If you're looking for the easiest way to add brightness or create a more noticeable high end on any instrument or bus, try Fresh Air by Slate Video. It's a free plugin that lets you amplify the highest aspects of your signal by using two aggressive shelf filters. Let's listen to the effect that this plugin has on an air bell in this mix.
What would I do without you, my life? You be my mind, you're still my eyes. I don't wanna leave this kid near. Oh,
Yeah, Fresh Air Bus is
If
like.
you have a mix that you need mastered, send it to us to receive a free mastered sample of it with a link in the description. Thank you so much for watching.
Damn. Let's go mixing low end. Let's see what he's got to say about this.
In this video, let's cover both technical and practical aspects of mixing low end. But real quick, we have a new membership. If you sign up, you get a free master from our engineers.
Go to
Since you already know
Sage
that,
Audio
let's
for
just answer what makes it
masters.
difficult to get right. The short answer is that there's too much signal competing for limited space. Let me show you what I mean. If we take a look at an EQ with a note scale at the bottom, we'll notice something interesting. The distance between octaves is so much more condensed in the lows than it is in the highs. So let's create a filter at the note E1, then we'll create a filter at the note E2. Now E1 is about 41 Hz, E2 is about 82 Hz. Already, we can tell that 40 Hz isn't a huge range between octaves, but let's look at the range between some higher notes. Now E6 is about 1318 Hz, and E7 is 2637 Hz. So whereas the distance between E1 and E2 is 40 Hz, it's more than 1300 Hz between E6 and E7. So do me a favor and imagine now that you have a kick drum playing. Its fundamental frequency is E1 or 41 Hz. Then you have a bass guitar playing, and it plays E2 or 82 Hz. Already, we have two very powerful signals that are incredibly close in frequency. But what's funny is that it can get a lot worse. So say that the kick's fundamental is C2 or 65 Hz, while the bass is playing a D2 note at 73 Hz. In this instance, only 8 Hz separates these two incredibly important and powerful instruments. So if you've been feeling like the low end of your mix is driving you insane, it's not you, it's just how sound works. But now that we know what's causing the issue, let's talk about how to fix it. First, by considering how to produce the low end. Now, getting a good sounding low frequency range starts with producing a track
Guaranteed he's going to talk about sidechaining.
thoughtfully. For example, if the kick and the bass occupy the same frequency, no matter how you mix it, they're never going to sound distinct. Now it's on the producer to say, well, if the song's key is G major and the bass's progression is G1, C1, and D1, it's probably not a good idea to tune the kick's fundamental to G1. Why? Because every time the bass hits that G1 note, the two occupy the same frequency, making it difficult to differentiate the two. So what would be a solution to this particular problem? Well, there are two good options. We could change the kick's fundamental, or we could change the bass's note. So maybe the bass player plays G.
I just need to learn how to sidechain exact frequencies. Because if you can sidechain exact frequencies and then you can also automate harmonics, you can literally accomplish everything that mixing is just always trying to accomplish no matter what. Because it's all just gain automation, right? You know what I'm saying? So it's just like if you could just sidechain and do stuff like that, you could get perfect mix every time.
E2, C1, and then D1, and maybe the kick gets tuned to B1 since this keeps it in key, but it doesn't overlap with the bass. Now, all this to say, these things need to get considered during pre-production, tracking, or the early stages of producing. Otherwise, you won't end up with a mix that sounds balanced. To illustrate this idea, let's listen to a kick that's tuned to G1 while the bass is playing a note that's G1 as well,
You
and
probably
listen
need
with
a
the bass
new
playing G2
HDMI
instead,
cord.
and notice how the region sounds a lot less
Yeah,
fuzzy.
there should be one in, like that box with the wires. There should be at least like 3 in there. Yeah. It's probably just that one HDMI.
Next, let's talk about harmonics and the low end. At this point, you might be thinking that we solved the problem. All we need to do is ensure that the kick
And
and
I'm
bass
pretty
don't
sure there's
overlap,
an
but there are
HDMI
more
cord,
complexities to
like,
consider, mainly with harmonics. Now, an instrument isn't just one
somewhere
frequency. It
over
includes a
here.
complex array of harmonics or overtones
Or
and
is the
disharmonious
longer
frequencies as
one?
well. For example, a bass might be playing
Yeah,
an
there
E1
should
note,
be
but
one,
harmonics
like,
for
right in
E2,
there, right?
E3, E4, and more might form depending on the
Longer
bass,
one,
the
yeah.
synth, the amplification used, and some other variables. Now, some of these things
Is
we
it
can't control.
behind me?
For example, I can't make a bass guitar have less overtones, nor would I really want to. But what we can control is how we process these instruments. So let's say that the
Also,
kick is
2
tuned
of
to
them don't
G1,
work.
just like in our last chapter. Again, our bass is playing a G2 note. But now, let's say I added a
You might
saturator
just
to the
have
kick
to,
drum.
like,
This
wiggle
saturator
them
emulates
around.
warm tube settings and introduces a strong second order harmonic. Well,
It
what's
did
the second
work
order
last
harmonic
night,
of
it just
G1?
took me a
It's
little.
G2. In other words, I've saturated the kick to make it sound fuller, but now it's interfering with the bass. Similar situations can occur with reverb, compression, other forms of distortion, and so on. For example, if I reverberate a kick, the low frequencies above the fundamental will likely be part of the decay, causing overlap with the bass. So we'll need to be careful with what processing we add to our low frequencies. Now, the best way to find what helps your low end is to use your ears. Otherwise, you'll need to memorize what processor adds what harmonics while keeping track of which notes are being played. With that in mind, let's take a listen to the same G1, G2 example as before, but this time I'm going to add saturation to the kick that first has a bad reaction with the bass, and then saturation that works around the bass's frequencies.
Oh, yeah.
Next up, let's cover improving lows with EQ. So now that we know how producing affects lows and what to avoid during mixing, let's talk about what we can do to reduce some issues. Now, EQ is probably the most powerful tool in mixing and mastering. In my opinion, it's also the best at improving a problematic low end. So let's put one EQ on our kick and one EQ on our bass. When we do, we can observe where they overlap and what makes them different. So let's say one of the kick's harmonics is overlapping with the bass's fundamental. With the EQ on the kick, we could attenuate that frequency with a bell filter. Now this way, the bass's fundamental has some more room. Or maybe both the kick and the bass have harmonics on or near the same note, making that part of the lows way too aggressive. We could attenuate the problematic range on either the kick or the bass, or both to varying degrees. Now notice that any changes I make with EQ are static. In other words, once the filter is introduced, it kind of just stays there. So if I attenuated frequencies on the bass, those are going to be attenuated.
All right, y'all. I need a fucking break. I need a break. Hope you guys. I'm gonna be going live in an hour and teaching a little mixing class, so it'll be like more intro stuff. So, see y'all later. Have a good day.